Hello my lovelies, and welcome to the Spirit Tarot and Healing Arts YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you are a returning viewer, I'm Rin, and today we are doing a walkthrough of the Ceccoli Tarot. Now when I'm filming this, it's just a couple days before Thanksgiving. I wanted to do this video now because the Ceccoli Tarot is one of my absolute favorite decks for the Yule and winter season. I've already started using it this year. I do sometimes break this out throughout the year, but I use this deck very heavily in the winter Yule season. The backs of the cards just kind of lend themselves to that vibe, and I don't know why, it's a very pastel colored deck. For some reason it just suits winter and Yule for me, and I thought that I was like really weird because I find this to be a Yule deck for me, and I discovered another YouTuber that she also has this in her decks for Yule, so I was surprised to learn that I am not the only one who sees this as a Yule wintertime deck. You can see here I actually started out with this deck with the mini version. And don't mind my nails, I wanted to get a video out today, so I did not take the time to fix my nail polish, so please don't mind that. But anyhow, I wanted to try this deck out because it is a low Scarabeo deck, and if you followed me, you know I am very anti-low Scarabeo. I don't like the company, and I have had many issues with the decks that I have purchased that are low Scarabeo decks. But I started off with the mini, and I really loved the deck, but for me personally, maybe it's because I'm old and my eyes are not as good as they used to be, I felt like I really needed the full-size version because I just felt like I wasn't catching all of the details in the mini. So when I got the full-size deck, I got this empty journal. I used scrapbooking, like the stickers that you use to put pictures in a scrapbook, and I put all of the mini cards into this journal. And then again, low Scarabeo deck, so all it comes with, even with the full-size version, is just a little white book. And so I did write the meanings from that little white book into this journal that I've started for this deck. I have not put my own interpretations and meanings into this deck yet, or into this journal for this deck yet. I will give you fair warning, even though the colors are very pastel and very light, this would be considered a dark deck because a lot of times the interpretation of the cards that is given in the little white book is a very dark take on the traditional meanings for the cards. I do not necessarily read this deck as dark as is in the little white book. I bring my standard tarot meanings into my readings when I read with this deck, but because I am aware it is intended to be a darker deck, I do keep that in mind when I read with this deck. But I really love the artwork. Nicoletta Ceccoli just has such a beautiful and unique art style. As we flip through, you will notice that a lot of these are fairy tale themed, or they're like food themed. There's like nursery themes or nursery rhyme themes, but it's all sort of this dark take on it while yet having this very light and airy palette in most cases. It's just such an interesting deck. Her artwork is so fascinating to me. I'm so drawn to it, and so that's why I absolutely love to read with this deck, and why I was willing to sort of test things out with the mini version. And then once I fell in love with that, I did break down and buy the full-size version. Now, one thing I do want to mention is this deck is not a deck for beginners, in my personal opinion. You do need to know for the majors which card is what number, because there are no titles on the majors, and that can be very troublesome for those who are beginning and haven't memorized that yet. And then you throw into the mix that the cards strength and justice are reversed of what a lot of people are used to seeing. So If you don't know tarot history, originally, pre-Rider-Waite-Smith, the 8th card in the majors was Justice and the 11th card was Strength. Now, when Arthur Waite was working with Pixie to develop the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, he wanted to correspond things with astrology as well. And in order to make his correspondences work, he is the one who switched Strength and Justice. So he's the one that made Strength card number 8 and Justice number 11. Prior to that, they were actually swapped, but because of his astrological correspondences, he swapped them, and because that is one of the most iconic decks in tarot, and most decks that are made today, not all obviously, but most are in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and so therefore it is quite common, and most of us are used to seeing the 8th card as Strength and the 11th card as Justice. But you do need to know that they are reversed in this deck, and that can be, like, you have to have that in your brain when you read with this deck, because there are no titles on the major. So not only do you need to know which major is which by number, but you also need to remember, if you're very indoctrinated into the Rider-Waite-Smith system and you're used to 8 being Strength and 11 being Justice, you have to remember that they are flipped in this particular deck. Which, if you are a seasoned reader, or maybe if you are a new reader, but this is just the deck for you, it's definitely readable. It's not a huge problem. It's just something you need to be aware of when you read with this deck. And like I also said, the meanings that are in the Little White Book are very often a dark take on traditional meanings for the card. So do I keep that in mind when I read with this deck? Absolutely. But I don't read all doom and gloom with the deck either. I keep my traditional meanings and remember that this deck was intended to take a more shadowy approach to things. But I absolutely love this deck. It is one of my favorite all-time decks. To be perfectly honest, as much as I don't like to support Lo Scarabeo, and I've already kind of bought this deck twice because I bought the mini and the full size, at some point, if I have extra money and I see a copy of the full size, I probably will pick up a second copy, because it's not the sturdiest of decks. If I continue, like, I've had this deck for a while now, a couple of years, but only like 2 years. I'm very gentle with my decks, but I do worry about using this deck to a point where I'm going to need another copy down the road. So at some point I probably will pick up a second copy of this deck, even though I don't like Lo Scarabeo, but just because I love this deck so much. I will let you know that there's also an Oracle deck. However, like the majors in this deck, I think there might be a title on the Oracle cards. I can't remember for sure now, but they don't really lend themselves to the way that I read Oracle cards. And so I have not, even though I love the art, I have not bought the Oracle deck. At some point I may break down and buy it, because I am sure that they would work really fabulously well together to give amazing readings. But I'm not a big fan on Oracle decks where I have to memorize specific meanings and that for just that Oracle deck. I like Oracle decks that have keywords and then I can just read intuitively based off of the keywords and the art as a springboard. I find that a little, or I anticipate that that would be hard for me to do with the Ceccoli Oracle. But if I ever get it, I will do a flip through of it as well. Alright, so I have rambled on quite enough for now. Let's get into the deck. that has been our look at the Ceccoli Tarot, one of my absolute favorite decks. I cannot get enough of this deck. Even though I tend to use it seasonally, it is still one of my absolute favorite tarot decks of all times. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much. Also, don't forget to check out my journal shop if you are looking for a journal to do something like I did with this deck. And don't forget to check out the merch shop too. I've got clothes, bags, stickers, water bottles, all kinds of fun stuff over there. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you have a deck that you would like to see me do a walkthrough of, you can leave that in the comments too. If I have the deck and it is YouTube friendly by YouTube's new rules, then I will definitely put it on my list to do a walkthrough of. But until I see you again, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.